I mistakenly brought home the tumor report form used during filming. During dinner, my contract wife Liu Ruyan suddenly asked me how many months were left. I thought she was asking about our one-year marriage contract. Soon there were only 2 months left. Liu Ruyan fell silent. Later, I went abroad for 3 months of low-key further studies. After I came back, I heard from my friends that Liu Ruyan had been looking for her deceased husband all over the country and was crazy looking for him. She said she wanted to see him alive or dead. I just ordered a large table of takeout and was about to have a full meal. Liu Ruyan, who I hadn't seen for several months, suddenly sat opposite me. I looked up at her in surprise. Liu Ruyan and I basically didn't see each other for more than a year after marriage. She was usually cold to me, and we rarely ate at the same table. In the words of her assistant, "You are just contractually married for a period of 2 years. Don't think too much about what you shouldn't think about. When the time comes, just take the money and leave. You won't suffer any loss. You can't reach a person like Miss Liu." Liu Ruyan just sat there casually, and from her hair to the end, she was arrogant and proud. I, who had to struggle for 10 years to barely touch her heels, was really out of reach, so I always kept my distance. Apart from money and resources, I never asked more questions about things that I shouldn't care about. Liu Ruyan seemed to be in a hurry to leave the company. She hadn't changed her clothes yet. She sat opposite me in a high-end professional suit and watched me eat quietly. A drop of hot pot soup almost splashed on Liu Ruyan. She paused and suddenly asked me how many months I had left. I looked at her with some doubts. Liu Ruyan is usually very busy at work. For people like him, time is money. He left his official duties and came to me just to ask me how long the marriage contract was left. I guess he thought that people like me were too embarrassing for him and his family, so he was anxious to let me go. I calculated the time carefully and comforted Liu Ruyan, saying that it would be soon, only about 2 months left. "Don't worry, Miss Liu, I will leave in advance and won't cause you any trouble." After listening to this, Liu Ruyan suddenly fell silent. After a while, when she spoke again, her voice was full of subtle emotions. "Do you have any wishes for the last period of time? Since signing the marriage contract with Liu Ruyan, I have received enough resources from Liu Ruyan, so I shook my head and said no, I have no other wishes." I don't know if it was my illusion, but I saw Liu Ruyan's eyes trembled slightly after hearing this. Liu Ruyan has been a little abnormal recently. I could only see her once every few weeks before. Now she stays at home every day. When I got up in the morning, I just finished replying to the agent's message and looked up to see Liu Ruyan sitting in the living room and looking at me quietly. I was horrified for a moment, then smiled at him and said, "Miss Liu, aren't you going to the company these days?" Liu Ruyan shook her head and said, "Company matters are not important now. I remembered that I learned from my agent this morning that Ito Makoto had returned to China." I glanced at the wine bottle on the table in the living room and nodded knowingly. Liu Ruyan's assistant told me that the reason why Liu Ruyan asked me to sign the one-year marriage contract was because I had a face that was 70% similar to her white moonlight. Liu Ruyan's white moonlight is called Ito Makoto, a young actor in the entertainment industry who became popular with a web drama 2 years ago. It is said that Liu Ruyan spent a lot of money on that web drama. But after becoming popular, Ito Makoto decisively broke up with Liu Ruyan and ran abroad, and Liu Ruyan asked me to sign the marriage contract just to deliberately get together on July 1st. I was quite impressed by this. It was indeed a love game for rich people. We workers were only qualified to be scraps. Because I had just finished filming a bloody drama about a domineering president chasing his wife, so I can rest at home for a while. When I was cleaning the room, I suddenly remembered that the shooting props I accidentally brought out from the crew last time were still in my school bag. The shooting prop I brought out was a tumor report, but I turned my school bag upside down and couldn't find it. I thought that Shani probably saw it and threw it away as garbage. It's not a big problem if it's missing. I'll just tell the director when the time comes. In order not to disturb Liu Ruyan, who was missing by Yueguang in the living room, I just stayed in my room. While playing games and eating snacks, I accidentally choked on water while laughing. I couldn't stop coughing. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door, and Liu Ruyan's anxious voice came from outside. "Is it serious again? Will it be very uncomfortable?" I was choked and couldn't speak. Liu Ruyan pushed the door open immediately. I was coughing so hard that when I looked up at her, tears came out of my eyes. Liu Ruyan, who was always calm, looked very painful. He looked at me and said, "Don't worry. I'll ask Songlin to take you to the hospital immediately." I finally recovered and looked at Liu Ruyan inexplicably. I said to him, "What's the use of going to the hospital? What's the use of going to the hospital if you choke on water? I don't understand." Liu Ruyan was stunned for a moment, and then he reacted and stood there and said, "It's really useless. The last 2 months are really powerless to save the situation." Standing face to face with Liu Ruyan, he kept the same posture without moving, and I didn't know what he was thinking. I glanced at the game that was still going on. I felt that my rare vacation time was still very precious. I cleared my throat and took the initiative to break this strange atmosphere and said, "Miss Liu, if it's okay, I'd like to rest in the room alone. Is that okay?" He seemed to come back to his senses suddenly and looked at me steadily. His precious and cold eyebrows revealed a rare sadness. When Liu Ruyan knocked on my door again, I was helpless. He and I met more people today than ever before. When I opened the door, Liu Ruyan smelled more drunk. Her hair, which she always took care of meticulously, was now messy. "Oh no, are you free tonight? I want to take you to a friend's dinner party. We've been married for so long, but my friends haven't met you yet." I looked at Liu Ruyan in surprise when I heard that. I've been married for more than a year, and I've always been clear about my position. At most, I'm just a substitute who can't stand the table. Isn't Liu Ruyan afraid of losing face by taking me to meet his friends? Or is it because Ito Makoto is returning to China today, so he deliberately wants to humiliate me in front of his friends and then attract Ito Makoto's attention? I thought for a while and asked Liu Ruyan if Mr. E was also present today. Liu Ruyan's expression flashed with confusion for a moment, and he nodded after a long while. I understood and said, "I understand. I will cooperate." Most of Liu Ruyan's friends are family members. The rich daughters and daughters of the rich and powerful in the village. The clothes they wear alone can equal the salary of one of my plays. When Liu Ruyan and I entered the door, they all looked over at me, and all kinds of eyes fell on me. They looked like people who were not easy to approach. Liu Ruyan was walking in front of me. When he suddenly stopped, he almost bumped into my arms. Then I realized that someone seemed to hold my hand gently. This was the first time that Liu Ruyan and I had physical contact after being married for so long. Liu Ruyan's palm temperature was a little cold, and his expressionless face made me inexplicably curious. What would he look like when he was persistent in love, like a man who always seemed to be in control of things? After walking a few steps, I heard someone suddenly behind me. A familiar voice came. "Sorry, we just got off the plane and are late." It was Ito Makoto, whose face looked 70% like mine, and whose tailor-made suit made him look extremely handsome, making me, who was wearing cheap clothes in front of him, look like a poor country bumpkin. I tactfully let go of Liu Ruyan's hand, for his sake, afraid that Ito Makoto would misunderstand that we were a real couple. Liu Ruyan, who was walking in front of me, suddenly froze. She seemed to smile bitterly, and her voice was almost inaudible. Does she still hate me so much? Although I knew that Liu Ruyan was of a prominent status, I was still quite moved when I saw her surrounded by several rich ladies and sitting in the middle. It's true that having money is everything. It was overbearing. I consciously chose a seat in the corner and sat down. Liu Ruyan, who was not far away, answered the boring questions thrown by the people next to him casually, and looked towards me. In fact, when Liu Ruyan saw that I didn't follow and sit next to him, he was stunned for a moment, and then he opened his mouth as if he wanted to ask something, but after a while, he turned around silently and ignored me. Liu Ruyan, who is used to dealing with big occasions for many years, never has any emotional changes on his face, but at the moment, he obviously makes people feel that he is in a bad mood. His eyebrows are cold, and he sipped the wine in the glass slowly. The whole person seems to be wrapped in a layer of coldness from the inside out. I subconsciously glanced at Ito Makoto. Maybe other people didn't see it just now, but I was always paying attention to what Ito Makoto and Liu Ruyan were doing. I saw that just now, Ito Makoto pretended not to see Liu Ruyan and walked over. Everyone else on the scene greeted him, but ignored Liu Ruyan. Sure enough, the rumors about Liu Ruyan and Ito Makoto on the internet were all true. Shen Yuchu, who had a good relationship with Liu Ruyan, took advantage of the opportunity when no one was paying attention and patted Liu Ruyan on the shoulder. He said jokingly, "You two haven't found a chance to talk it out yet." Liu Ruyan pressed her brows in annoyance. "Not yet." Shen Yuchu sighed and said jokingly, "Hesitation is not like your character. Be careful that someone takes the opportunity to steal your girl." Liu Ruyan raised her eyelids and glanced at Shen Yuchu. He immediately shrugged and changed his words. "That's right, who has the guts to steal your girl?" "I'm just kidding you." Before Liu Ruyan could say anything, Shen Yuchu suddenly looked around and asked in confusion, "Where's your husband who came with you? How come I haven't seen him?" Liu Ruyan also looked in the direction of her sight, and looked at the empty seat, frowned and looked at me with contempt. I was hiding in the bathroom. It's not that I didn't want to come out, but the scene was really embarrassing. Ito Makoto and his friend were chatting outside, and I heard that they were chatting enthusiastically. They didn't expect that there was someone in the bathroom. "Are you still having a quarrel with General Liu? It's really hard to believe that someone like General Liu is so devoted to you. The husband she deliberately found is 70% like you, but I don't think that man can compare to you." Ito Makoto sneered. I fixed my hair in front of the mirror and left him alone for a while. When I'm in a good mood, I can just wave and he will come over. But you have to be careful. You two have been in a cold war for so long. What if Mr. Liu wants to get over it one day? Where can you find a cash cow who is so infatuated with you? Ito Makoto interrupted impatiently. How is it possible? Who else can he like except me? His wife who looks like me, his newly married husband Liu Ruyan who looks like him, is hiding in the toilet at the moment and fell into silence. I was holding the toilet door handle. I was now struggling whether to open the door or not, because they have been chatting for too long and my legs are sore from standing inside. But after opening the door, the scene of the three of us facing each other would be really awkward. After weighing the two options, I endured it and decided to stand there for a while. I'll have to ask Liu Ruyan to give me some more subsidy later. In order not to embarrass his white moonlight Ito Makoto, I have paid a huge price. Not long after, there was a sudden knock on the toilet door, and Liu Ruyan's voice came from outside. "Hello, is there anyone inside?" Ito Makoto and I were all stunned. Jibota looked at Ito Makoto with envy, and then he disappeared. "He came to find you so worriedly in a moment." Ito Makoto couldn't hide his pride, raised his eyebrows and said, "I said he doesn't like me, who else can he like?" Then Liu Ruyan spoke again. "Hello, is my husband in there? He hasn't come out for a long time. I'm worried that something has happened to him." The bathroom was quiet for a moment, and the toilet door creaked and someone opened it. Pushing it open, I walked out reluctantly, and looked at Ito Makoto who was standing there in a daze. I laughed awkwardly. "You charming girl, you are here too?" They didn't say anything. Ito Makoto's face turned pale for a moment. Then he walked out quickly first. When he met Liu Ruyan, he deliberately glared at her. Liu Ruyan walked over and I followed them and went out, winking at Liu Ruyan who was waiting there. "She's angry, why don't you chase after this guy quickly? You're a fool." Liu Ruyan looked at my expression, frowned in confusion and said, "What's wrong? Is my condition getting worse?" I rolled my eyes secretly. "What's the condition? I'm so young and still so healthy. Don't curse me to get sick, okay?" Shen Yuchu, who was following behind Liu Ruyan, suddenly she asked curiously, "What kind of illness is it? Is eyelid cramp considered an illness?" Only then did I notice Shen Yuchu. I had seen her before. She was Liu Ruyan's playmate since childhood. I heard that she had countless boyfriends. Today, she brought a very special boyfriend to the dinner party and sat next to me. He was a male college student. Among the extremely luxurious people, he was only wearing simple jeans and a sweatshirt. He looked innocent and embarrassed. He obediently allowed me to trick her into drinking. In my heart, I silently despised Shin Yuchu. "You are a scumbag and you have eyelid cramps. Your whole family has eyelid cramps." Liu Ruyan did not explain too much. He just replied to Shen Yuchu indifferently, "You don't understand." He turned to look at me. In fact, I don't understand either, but as a Liu Ruyan's contract husband is something I shouldn't care about. I won't ask too much. When I returned to the box, many people were surrounding Ito Makoto, as if they saw Liu Ruyan coming back. Jibota deliberately raised his voice and said, "Ito Makoto, don't be sad. It's not worth it for that kind of woman." No one dared to talk to him. No one wanted to offend Liu Ruyan. Seeing that the atmosphere was cold for a while, Jibota felt a little embarrassed, so he said loudly, "Even if you two are having a quarrel, is it necessary for him to deliberately make you so sad? He obviously knows that you have always had a strong self-esteem." In the box, a weak voice suddenly interrupted. "But I remember that General Manager Liu's husband is Chan Xingyu, not you." It's not good to say that. I was stunned and followed the voice. I saw that the quiet one brought by Shen Yuchu, my boyfriend, was nervously clenching the wine glass in his hand, standing up for me. Jibota's face turned cold. He was about to say something else, but Shen Yuchu said first, "The husband is here, what are you doing here?" I was shocked. I subconsciously turned my head to look at Liu Ruyan, only to see her looking at Jibota and Ito Makoto with frighteningly cold eyes. After a long while she spoke and said, "Security, kick them out if they make trouble again." Not only me, but even Ito Makoto had a cold face and looked up at Liu Ruyan in disbelief. The dinner ended unpleasantly. When I got home I just locked the door and turned around, and bumped into Liu Ruyan who was standing there motionless. The lights in the living room were not on. Liu Ruyan was probably in a bad mood today. She was usually self-disciplined and rarely drank. A habit, but now she is very close to me. The faint perfume on her clothes is mixed with the smell of red wine, wrapping me in it. I dare not move. I feel my heart beat a little. I hear Liu Ruyan's voice with a slight hoarse voice. "Chan Xingyu, I have something to tell you. The atmosphere is a little too strange. I am inexplicably nervous. You can say it." And then as if I suddenly remembered something, I said it again. "Yes, I also have something to tell you." A phone ring suddenly rang. Interrupting Liu Ruyan's voice that was about to open, I saw her hesitate for a moment and then answered the phone. It was the assistant who called. Liu Ruyan suddenly frowned, saying something about a funding shortage. He hurried out. He paused when closing the door, turned around and said to me, "Wait for me to come back soon," but I didn't wait for Liu Ruyan for several days. Seeing that he was so busy, I didn't feel comfortable disturbing him, so I didn't tell him that I had applied to study abroad, because acting still required learning more. I followed my friend's advice and chose to keep a low profile. I went abroad for further studies for 3 months. When I got on the plane, I had already planned to take a 3-month break. When I came back again, it was almost the end of the contract agreed upon by Liu Ruyan and I. It happened that Liu Ruyan couldn't see me at home, so for her, out of sight, out of mind. I would just get a divorce and concentrate on my career. When I went abroad, adhering to the habit of saving money, I specially changed to an overseas phone card. For 3 months I seemed to be isolated from the world. Completely I threw myself into studying until I returned to China. As soon as I got off the plane, I turned on my phone and changed back to my original phone card. The calls from Jojo's family and the overflowing messages made me fall into a moment of contemplation. I had told my parents who were far away in the countryside about studying abroad. Because I had few friends around me, the only people who knew about my study abroad were my best friends. As for my agent and the company, I had specially asked for leave. An automatically delivered message popped up from a public account called Entertainment Circle Gossip Guide, which revealed another tragic love story. In order to find her deceased husband, the CEO of the well-known Liu Group went all over the country just to see her lover for the last time. I read this sentence several times, and then stood in the wind disheveled. Liu's CEO is Liu Ruyan. I know this, but I don't know if I misunderstood or if Liu Ruyan has found a new husband. Who exactly is this deceased husband? When I returned to Liu Ruyan's villa, the house was very quiet. All the furnishings were exactly the same as before I left. Even the juice that I had drunk and forgot to throw away was left on the table without moving. I was a little silent. It has been 3 months and it should have fermented. My room was even locked up. I couldn't even get my passbook when I wanted to. That was the salary I had saved for more than 10 years. I walked to the sofa and sat down depressed. There were wine bottles everywhere in the living room. I guess there were several I hadn't asked the cleaning lady to come for a month, so I had to pick up the broom and clean the house. I decided to tidy up the house for the last time before the contract ended. The door of the villa happened to open at this time. It was Liu Ruyan who came home from the company. It was only 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Liu Ruyan was a workaholic. Usually at this time of the day, she would still be in a meeting, but she was not wearing any makeup at the moment. She was wearing casual clothes. Her eyes were red and she lowered her head. Liu Ruyan always kept herself clean and paid attention to her image. She was dressed in a clean and tidy professional suit. She had a thin waist and long legs. She looked delicate and cold. But at this moment, she looked so decadent that I suspected that her company had gone bankrupt. Liu Ruyan took off her coat and just raised her head. He looked at me sitting on the sofa. He was stunned for a moment, then lowered his head and rubbed his eyes tiredly, smiled bitterly and said to himself that he hadn't slept well for a few days. How could he still have hallucinations? I was a little speechless and then I said, "What hallucinations? I'm alive and well." Liu Ruyan paused. He opened his eyes and looked at me in a daze. After a while he suddenly took a few steps forward, took the half bottle of red wine that had not been finished in the living room, poured it into his mouth and walked straight to me. He stared at me. His lips and teeth moved slightly. The smell of alcohol all over his body made me realize that Liu Ruyan was probably not sober at the moment. I just realized that something was wrong. And then Liu Ruyan suddenly held my face with both hands. His eyes seemed to be moved. He stood on tiptoe and bit my lip hard. He wrapped his hands around my waist and pushed hard into my arms. Liu Ruyan had a fragrance from years of perfume, which made me distracted. I tried to push Liu Ruyan away and wake him up. "Liu Ruyan, I am really not dead." When Liu Ruyan heard my voice, he looked up at me with red eyes. Then he closed his eyes tightly and his voice was hoarse. "It's okay to dream. If I can see you in the dream, I'll dream for a while. That's why I hate dealing with drunk people the most." Liu Ruyan's movements became more and more anxious. As if she was afraid the next second, she disappeared again. I was exhausted and chose to let go. But just when I loosened my hand, Liu Ruyan suddenly closed her eyes and fell into my arms. I was so scared that I sniffed her breath. Fortunately, she fell asleep because she hadn't rested for too long. I was very depressed. I really didn't know why she suddenly went crazy. When I contacted my aunt at home to clean up, she was obviously a little panicked when she heard my voice on the other end of the phone. Okay, I'll be there right away." I was silent for half a second and then I explained, "Didn't Liu Ruyan tell you that I died?" "Actually, I'm not dead, I'm alive and well." Aunt's voice seemed more nervous. Okay, I'll be there right away." I waited until 8 o'clock in the evening, but my aunt didn't come. Liu Ruyan didn't wake up, and my room door was still locked. I kept calling people around me to ask what happened. After asking for a long time, I finally found out that it was my aunt who took a report of my tumor and told Liu Ruyan that I had a terminal illness. I was silent because I remembered the filming prop that was lost in the crew last time. The tumor report was taken away by my aunt and given to Liu Ruyan. I also remembered the various questions that Liu Ruyan had asked me before. I suddenly understood that Liu Ruyan asked me how much time I had left, and she was asking how many days I could live. Instead of how much time was left before our contract expired, I said there were only 3 months left. Fortunately, Liu Ruyan only started posting a missing person notice online in the past few days. If it was any later, I would have just returned to China, and not only would there be no farewell party, but there would also be a mourning party in a few days. When Liu Ruyan woke up, it was already past 11 o'clock in the evening. He opened his eyes and looked at me blankly for a while, then rubbed his temples and looked at me in a daze again. I greeted him with a fake smile. Ms. Liu, you finally woke up. Liu Ruyan nodded silently. I told him briefly that I was not dead, I was alive and well. I just went abroad for further studies for 3 months. Last time I wanted to talk to you but you went to the company. I saw you were busy so I didn't disturb you. That tumor report was just a prop when I was filming last time. Liu Ruyan paused for a few seconds, and then her eyelashes trembled slightly before she spoke again. Filming props. I took a deep breath. Yes, I just accidentally brought it home. The atmosphere in the room was quiet for a while. After a while, Liu Ruyan repeated in a low and hoarse voice, so you are really not dead. Of course, Liu Ruyan's lips and teeth moved slightly. He raised his eyes again but frowned and looked at my lips, saying, why is your mouth so swollen? What did you do abroad? He was afraid that Liu Ruyan would make a scene again. This is a bigger insult than holding a morning party for me. I hurried to explain. You kissed me, have you forgotten? Liu Ruyan was stunned for a moment again, and a blush quickly climbed up her cold eyebrows. She coughed twice unnaturally. It's easy to lose control when drunk. Sorry, it's more than a loss of control. I gritted my teeth secretly and said, forget it. Since all the misunderstandings that should be dealt with have been dealt with, I mentioned the business to Liu Ruyan. By the way, I rushed back this time to go through the divorce procedures. Our 2-year marriage contract has expired. Are you free tomorrow? No, Liu Ruyan replied immediately. What about the day after tomorrow and the day after tomorrow? I'm not free. Liu Ruyan looked at me. You know I'm very busy at work. I was silent, but actually I was not in a hurry about this matter. I rushed back only because I thought Liu Ruyan was in a hurry to divorce me. After all, didn't she want to win back Ito Makoto? And now that I thought about this misunderstanding carefully, I suddenly felt a little strange. I could sense that Liu Ruyan seemed to have particularly strong feelings for me. But wasn't I just a substitute for Ito Makoto? During the period when I first got married to Liu Ruyan, didn't I have different thoughts about him? After all, Liu Ruyan did have a face that made men fall in love with her. After getting along for more than a year, even if she was the one you hated, it was inevitable that you would have some feelings for her. I had some different feelings for Liu Ruyan, but soon I repeatedly reminded myself that Liu Ruyan and I were from different circles, and he already had someone he was obsessed with. I could like anyone, but I couldn't let my liking look so humble, so I always deliberately stopped myself from caring about Liu Ruyan's life, and never asked about things that had nothing to do with me. I would nip any sprouts in the bud. I didn't know whether the feelings Liu Ruyan expressed to me at this moment were based on the habit left over from more than a year of contractual interaction, or whether she was simply moved after treating me as a substitute for Ito Makoto, but I couldn't accept either of them. So I smiled faintly at Liu Ruyan and said, then you pick a time, let's quickly complete the divorce procedures. I won't bother you these few days. I'll rent a house outside and live by myself. When I met Ito Makoto again, he took the initiative to come to my house to find me. He looked me up and down, drank a sip of tea with confidence and then slowly spoke. Do you know why Liu Ruyan married you? I nodded calmly and said his words for him. I know because I look a bit like him, and he uses me as your substitute. Ito Makoto was stunned for a moment, and then said contemptuously, since you know everything, why are you still staying by his side? You should know that he is an eyesore to me. As long as I apologize to Liu Ruyan, he will rush back to find me. I answered honestly, I know, so we will divorce in the next few days. Ito Makoto obviously didn't expect that I would lose him like this. He opened his mouth and closed it silently, as if he didn't know what to say next. After a moment he sneered and said, it's good to know, don't bother him again in the future. Ito Makoto was about to leave, and when he opened the door, he happened to be face to face with Liu Ruyan, who was standing at the door. Obviously, he didn't know how long he had been listening. I felt a little embarrassed for both of them. Ito Makoto looked at Liu Ruyan, and suddenly his voice sank. He said sincerely, Ruyan, I was wrong. I shouldn't have run to abroad, can you please come back to me? Liu Ruyan frowned and took a step aside. Mr. Yi, please respect yourself and don't say things that shouldn't be said and don't let people misunderstand you. Ito Makoto was stunned for a moment. He was arrogant by nature. This was the first time he admitted his mistake. He was rejected so ruthlessly that he got angry. What do you mean, Liu Ruyan? I have already admitted my mistake to you. What else do you want? Liu Ruyan looked at him calmly. What? Am I asking you this? You keep pestering me, what do you want? I was shocked and felt like I smelled some gossip. Liu Ruyan said again, it was you who deliberately dragged me into the scandal to gain traffic. I gave you face and didn't care. What else do you want then? He turned to look at me, who was listening attentively to the gossip, and said, you just stand aside and watch the show. I didn't finish what I wanted to say to you last time, but you left. Today is a good time to make everything clear. After listening to Liu Ruyan's words, I deeply felt that it was indeed a shocking gossip, because the investor of Ito Makoto's web drama ran away. Halfway through the filming, the director asked Ito Makoto to attend a dinner to solicit sponsorship. It sounded nice to say that it was soliciting sponsorship, but in fact it was an unspoken rule. It happened that I met Liu Ruyan at the dinner. Seeing that Ito Makoto was harassed by a fat rich woman, Liu Ruyan helped Ito Makoto out of trouble, and took the opportunity to cover the investment of the entire drama. Liu Ruyan has always been a chaste woman, unlike other rich girls who have fun every day. So when this incident happened, there were many rumors, saying that Ito Makoto was the white moonlight that Liu Ruyan loved but could not get. Because Liu Ruyan had a great background and status, in order to please Liu Ruyan, she deliberately tried to please Ito Makoto. Driven by vanity, Ito Makoto deliberately did not clarify the matter, and let the rumors spread. Over time, even he himself believed the gossip. Yes, if Liu Ruyan didn't like him, why would she spend so much money on such a bad web drama with a terrible reputation for a boy who was not related to her? If Liu Ruyan didn't like him, why do you never take the initiative to clarify these rumors? However, Liu Ruyan did not save face for Ito Makoto this time. He looked at Ito Makoto with a slightly cold expression. I know why. I have never bothered to care about what you have done to me. Otherwise, normally speaking, any star who offends Liu Ruyan will not only not disappear, but will become more and more popular. Ito Makoto, you really have to thank your own face. I widened my eyes in shock. After going around in circles, it turns out that we are both substitutes. Liu Ruyan looked at my surprised expression with some amusement. He held me my hand gesture. Do you remember? The first time we met was on a plane. Of course I remember. After I learned about Liu Ruyan's identity, I was still worried for a long time. The first time I met Liu Ruyan was on a plane. At that time, Liu Ruyan had just returned from studying abroad. I am a natural extrovert. I saw Liu Ruyan was beautiful on the plane, so I deliberately went to talk to him. I told him that I was actually a star just outside the 18th line. Liu Ruyan looked at the financial newspaper in his hand, and said sparingly, Then I pointed to the person who was about to rush over. I said to him, I'm talking about the building that reaches into the clouds. It's the company my father runs. Liu Ruyan finally reacted. He looked at me in surprise. Then he pointed to the taller building next to it and said, What a coincidence. The building next to it is the company my father runs. I laughed at him in my heart. He was really boasting without thinking. I just said it casually. He was even more exaggerated than me. Everyone knows that the tallest building in the city center is owned by the Liu Group. Could he be the daughter of the chairman of the Liu Group? Later, when I got off the plane, I found out that he was really the chairman of the Liu Group. The daughter of the chairman, Liu Ruyan, saw me waiting for the car with him at the door at that time. His driver arrived first. Liu Ruyan turned around and asked me, I'll take you, let's go together. It just so happens that I will go to your company to meet Aunt Shen later. You should be Aunt Shen's son, right? I laughed dryly and said, No need. But Liu Ruyan smiled at me faintly. That beautiful face that can make all the little boys fall in love at first sight instantly killed my rationality. Aunt Shen has done a favor to my father. It's okay. I said okay, let's go the next second. But when we got to the door of the company, I kept refusing to. After getting off the bus, I said I was hungry. I tricked Liu Ruyan to the stall next to us and had some wontons. Then I tricked Liu Ruyan to the fried chicken shop and had some fried chicken. Liu Ruyan had obviously never eaten these things before. She ate very elegantly and slowly. When she used a knife to cut the chicken breast of the fried chicken into pieces, I was dumbfounded. Afterwards, she said thank you to me for taking me to eat such delicious food. I smiled at her and said, Isn't it true? Delicious food can make people feel better, especially eating fried chicken. Liu Ruyan smiled and her mood did improve a little. Let's go now. Can I go see Aunt Shen now? I was silent for a moment, then I said, Wait, I'm still a little hungry, let's go have afternoon tea. Later, when we came out after afternoon tea, it was dark as I expected. I turned around and pretended to be very regretful to Liu Ruyan and said, Oh, it's too late. See Aunt Shen tomorrow. How about we go to see a movie first? Liu Ruyan hesitated for a long time before nodding. Later, I learned that the day I met Liu Ruyan was the second week after his parents and brother passed away. He missed their birthday because he was angry with his father because he didn't want to take over his father's company. The last call before the car accident. Originally, they had bought a plane ticket to Mexico, intending to give a surprise to Liu Ruyan, who had been abroad for 3 years and had not returned home, but they encountered a car accident on the way. The last call to Liu Ruyan rang for a long time, but no one answered. On the day Liu Ruyan returned to China, he originally wanted to find a place to end his life after meeting the last few important people in his life, but he happened to meet me, who was attracted by his beauty. I pestered him from dawn to dusk. It was a coincidence. He was used to eating delicacies from land and sea. The first time she ate fried skewers from a snack stand, she woke up with a start, forgetting the nightmares of the whole night and the pain of losing her loved ones. He suddenly thought it shouldn't be now, there are still things he hasn't seen, explored or tried, he should try them one by one, so it shouldn't be now. For a long time afterwards, I didn't see Liu Ruyan again. I concentrated on filming my drama, even if no matter how I filmed it was a mess. When I learned about Liu Ruyan's news, it was on Weibo. I saw him first. He got it back at a young age. My father's shares, became the CEO of Liu Group, and then I saw the scandal between him and Ito Makoto. Later, I met Liu Ruyan several times at dinner parties. He sat in the middle with everyone around him, and I sat in the corner of the last table. Then Liu Ruyan suddenly contacted me and said that he wanted to sign a 2-year marriage contract with me, paying me 6 million in advance and 8 million afterwards. Hearing such a great news, I asked his assistant why he wanted to sign this marriage contract with me for safety reasons. Liu Ruyan's assistant also knew the scandal between Ruyan Liu and Makoto Ito, warned me not to think too much. Ruyan Liu and I were together only because of my face, which was 70% similar to Makoto Ito. I didn't feel disappointed. After all, Ruyan Liu and I had only met once. How could someone like him like me? In fact, when we just got married, I couldn't help but have some hope in my heart. After all, I knew very well from the first time I met Ruyan Liu that her face was really what I liked. But after marriage, Ruyan Liu was always very cold to me. I gradually stopped having any hope and just did my best. It's all my business. I clearly understand that what we have is just a deal. After learning the truth from Liu Ruyan, I felt my heart beating faster. I thought it might be because I was in a good mood. Then I asked Liu Ruyan belatedly, "In other words, you fell in love with me at first sight?" Liu Ruyan was silent for a moment and then denied it. "That's not the case. I'm a little disappointed. In fact, when I signed the marriage contract with you, I just wanted to experience all the things I haven't tried before the end of my life. I came to you because you are very interesting and I just haven't been in a relationship before. At first I thought I would get tired of you after 2 years, but later on, he began to care about me more and more inexplicably. Until he learned that I only had 2 months left to live, he realized that some feelings can only be seen when the big waves come, and they are barely exposed. This kind of feeling is not habitual companionship, but a liking that is suddenly realized after it is about to be lost." I looked at Liu Ruyan speechlessly when I heard it. "Why didn't you say it earlier? Why did you have to make these misunderstandings? Wouldn't it be better to make it clear earlier?" Liu Ruyan cleared her throat unnaturally. "I always thought you hated me. Shin Yuchu later told me that it was wrong for me to ask you to sign that contract. It would make you mistakenly think that I treated you as a commodity and didn't respect you. Moreover, your attitude towards me has always been unwilling, and you are always in a hurry to sever ties with me. For example, last time I attended the dinner, didn't you even want to sit with me?" I fell silent for a while, thinking whether my moral bottom line was too low. Otherwise, why did I say that when I learned that I had signed that contract, when I signed the marriage contract and could get more than 10 million, my mind was filled with the joy of being rich and I didn't think about respect. After a while, I told Liu Ruyan to help me tell Shin Yuchu that he was overthinking, and next time there is such a good thing, remember to find me again. Liu Ruyan looked at me angrily, and when I laughed dryly twice and said I was not joking, Ito Makoto, who had been ignored for a long time, stared at Liu Ruyan blankly. After a while, he collapsed and scolded Liu Ruyan with a cold face, saying she was a scumbag, and then rushed out. My luggage is still downstairs, and I originally planned to collect it today. After picking up the things, I left Liu Ruyan's house. Who knew so many things would happen suddenly? So Liu Ruyan stood opposite me and blocked the door from opening. She waited for me patiently and said, "Are we getting divorced now?" I asked Liu Ruyan, who looked at me with some amusement and said, "Yes." I thought about it and said, "But you haven't paid the deposit of 8 million. If we don't get divorced, I will be at a loss." Liu Ruyan was so angry that she laughed and said, "If we don't get divorced, you can have as many 8 million as you want." I nodded and said, "Okay then." Liu Ruyan repeated my words in disbelief and said, "Okay then. Why did you say that?" So reluctant, I smiled at her gently. "It means I am reluctant. Who told you to hold a memorial service for me?" When we were having dinner at home in the evening, Liu Ruyan asked if I knew what day it was today. I looked at Liu Ruyan with some doubt. She pointed to the calendar next to her. "I just came back from abroad, so many things happen. I almost forgot. It is almost New Year," the nanny said. "Since the accident, Liu Ruyan has been spending the New Year alone at home every year." I smiled and took Liu Ruyan's hand and said to her, "I will accompany you in the future." Outside the window at 12 o'clock, fireworks bloomed in every corner on time. Whether it was me and Liu Ruyan lying in my arms, or Ito Makoto who was crying sadly downstairs, or everyone who was troubled by life at this moment, they all looked up at the fireworks above their heads at the same time. The brilliant flames illuminated this huge world. The world seemed to have pressed the pause button at this moment. Even if the road is confused, even if you make a mistake, look up. The road ahead extends from above to your feet. Life is colorful. After the fog dissipates, there must be a road to heaven. The whole text ends.